doing?
Hello.
I'm trying to remove resources, for some resources from my machine because everything is blocked here, man. It's like everything is 100%, and I can't do anything. How's everyone? Okay?
I
All good?
hope so.
Can't
Hold
hear?
on a second. Sorry?
Is it me as well? Problem?
Oh, I don't know.
Yep, it's me. Hold on. Headset Luna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 All right, very well. So everything is working right. Is everyone okay? Yeah,
Yes.
Monday. Yeah, Monday sucks. Yeah. All right. So that's normal, right?
Hello, Matthew.
Hi, Vladislav. How are you?
I'm fine.
How are you? Monday. How's Monday for you?
Monday was fine, I think.
All right, good, good, good. Even my Monday was fine too. So let's try this. Seems like I have a bit of CPU usage left. Think. So the next topic for today is incident response. And why do you guys and ladies, of course, think that we need to have a decent incident response?
We need to have it because we need to prevent maybe next incidents and to
Hmm.
comply with different regulations and also to answer to have a proper answer for our clients if we have a breach or something like this.
Yes,
It's
that
really
is
important.
correct. That is correct, Ilya. But also, it's because we cannot pretend that we will never get a breach, because we will always get breaches, guys and girls. So the mindset has to be there, and even from a company perspective, they need to understand that putting, you know, a lot of tools there, having a SOC and everything, you will still get breaches. We are not an insurance company, right? Where we provide, a certain promise of sorts. The idea is that the mindset of the company has to understand that a breach will happen. And what we're trying to do here is that we are putting controls in place to make it make it slower, make it more painful for the hacker, but also, you know, detecting it. Because at the end of the day, there are lots of companies who think they never have a breach. It's just because they have never detected that breach and because they don't understand that a breach had happened into their company. So it is important that even the mindset of your CEO or chief executives in particular, they understand this, that this is part of business. We're doing business. At some point in your history, you're gonna get a breach, and you have not you can't do anything about it, but you can recover fast. So we call it failing fast, the idea of having a breach and recovering from it fast and detecting it as fast as possible to minimize the blast radius. And that is what an incident response plan is. And this is why an incident response plan is there to provide, that document where, you open the safe, get out this document. So this is the incident response plan, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is what we're going to do. So there are certain things in the CIS that actually ensures, that wants us to have an awareness and response plan. There are 9 controls. Let's go through them and let's see whether they make sense or not, or whether we want to add something else in this incident response plan, or maybe, it doesn't make sense at all. Let's see. So 17.1 says that you need to designate personnel to manage incident handling. Why do we need to why do we need to designate people, to be part of the incident response team? Anyone?
Because without those people, no one would know to whom to write if something happens.
Hmm.
Employees wouldn't know.
Hmm. Anyone else? Maria, maybe? Why do you think we need to have at least one person as well, that he is ultimately responsible for the incident response plan?
So we need now exactly who will be handle all this process of incident response.
Hmm.
So even if something happened, We know that we have person who will respond for it, and will directly give some task for us people.
Mhm. I think a word which I'm looking for here is accountability. So you need to have one person in the company who is accountable and responsible for the incident response plan, who actually, makes sure that the incident response plan does it makes sense, because every year or every 6 months, I don't know, the company changes, you have new acquisitions, maybe you're using different tools, maybe today you're using ServiceNow and you migrated to Atlassian, right? And maybe the tool Atlassian is part of your incident response plan. Maybe you create tickets in this system. So you need to have someone who's constantly vetting this response plan, making sure that it's still in line with the company's tools, with the company's objectives, and all that. And also, an incident response plan, you need to keep it updated. You need to have the correct vendor list, for example, the numbers of your vendors. I don't know, your data center providers. Maybe you need numbers of your third-party integrators. Yes, maybe you need to keep all these kind of alive, and people from third party companies might leave, and what happens, I mean, is if the contact is of a person rather than of a department, you might 3 years down the line user incident response plan like, hello, yep, no, I left that company 3 years ago, I'm very sorry, bye. I mean, it needs to be alive. There needs to be continuation. And let's see what it says here. It designate one key person and at least one backup, just in case it gets hit by a bus, who will manage the enterprise incident handling process. Management personnel are responsible for the coordination and documentation of the incident response and recovery efforts and can consist of employees internal to the enterprise, third-party vendors, or a hybrid approach. If using a third-party vendor, designate at least one person internal to the enterprise to be a proxy, right? To manage that third party. Because sometimes, for example, if you have a managed service, you might need to have more than one person. Yes, and you need to have a person responsible of that third party system that you have. Maybe you can't get the system up and running yourself, but you need a third party company to do it. So there'll be one person in your incident response plan from the third party that is responsible for that area within your business. So it's important that you outline these things, and see, okay, so we have the system. What can we do ourselves, and what do we need? For example, us. We might need under defense to get our Splunk enterprise security up and running. So we need someone within under defense in this incident response plan to make sure that they help us bring it back alive. So all these things we need to think about, and there needs to be one person who is ultimately responsible for it, so that they feel accountable that they're doing stuff and that they're there to create the document and also to manage the actual system if it goes bust. All right. 17.2, establish and maintain contact information for reporting security incidents. What are these contact information? Yeah. Why do we need contact information?
To have a way in the shortest time possible to report some security issues, because they need to be mitigated on the shortest time.
Yeah, exactly. And these contacts are very important, because if you have an incident, you might need to have contact information for, cyber patrol, or you need information for the police. You need information from the IDPC. You need to have these contacts ready. You can't be in a situation where you're looking at these contacts online, or you have to log into a portal to create a ticket and all these things. The process has to be prepared, kind of thing. If we're talking about data center contacts, perhaps, or contacts of hardware suppliers, because you can have any incident, right? It could be an incident of a breach. It could be an incident because someone exploded your data center. It could be anything. So you need to have these contacts in place, and they need to be checked every single year. It's not the first time where you go and call that person, or you email that person, and you get a reply saying that that person doesn't work there anymore. So it's very important that you have these stakeholders in place and you have these contacts ready. They have to be part of your documentation. 17.3, establish and maintain an enterprise process for reporting incidents. How are they going to be reported? Yes, because there are certain incidents and there are other incidents. There are internal incidents, yes, and there are incidents that happen and they affect external parties. Anyone wants to elaborate on what I just said? So we might have a security incident that happened internally, and that's it. But then there are security incidents that happen internally, and it affects third-party personnel. So in your incident plan, there has to be two different areas, right? Two different flows. One is having an incident, and it's the blast radius is all internal and it's fixed, and that's it. And then there are incidents which are affect perhaps customers as well.
It can be somebody from marketing. It can be suppliers contact.
No, what I'm trying to say is that perhaps I have a data breach, right? This data breach could be because of data breach of a number of employees. Yes, name, surname, etc. That is handled internally, and it dies over there. But sometimes you might have a website with, I don't know, 10,000 customers, and that data is breached. So in your process flow, it's different, because in that case, one, GDPR, you have 72 hours to sign up the report. It has to be part of the incident response plan. Two, how are you going to notify all the players or the customers that you have? Three, maybe reporting it to the cybercrime unit, or it's a different flow. Whereas if it's internal, and something happened which can be contained internally, then it is different. You don't need perhaps to notify via email. You don't need to maybe contact the ITPC, because it can be sorted out internally and things like that. So there has to be two different flows. If the breach or the incidents affecting external parties, like your customers, there is a different incidence response than having an incident which is affected only internally. And also part of your incident response plan is how you're going to do. First is you need to contain it. You need to contain the blast as much as possible. After that, you need to see what are the ramifications about it, what happened. How bad is it? Need to gauge this. And then after that, you need to see, backtrack whatever that person has done. Yeah, so that you understand whether there are any other connected services. Usually, nowadays, whenever there's some sort of infiltration happening, they don't just come in and go. First they pitch their tents, they start creating backdoors, APIs, so that they can start using their own tools to start exfiltrating data. You need to understand this. You need to find out what are these different avenues that these hackers have created within your enterprise. Because the way it works is that they're not there just a bit. They want to be there for months. They want to harvest as much information as possible. I've seen this happen, and I know what I'm saying. It's not a matter of touch and go. It's a matter of pitching their tent and start deploying tools. And unless you have a SIM or AI driven tools and stuff like that, you will have no idea that they're in your network. Yeah, Julia, Maria, Oleg, Katrina, Vladislav, Ilya.
Yeah.
All right. So, establish and maintain an enterprise process for workforce to report security incidents. The process includes reporting time frame. Yeah, as I said, IDPC, GDPR. You have 72 hours to report the breach after you know what happened. So, technically speaking, and spend 2 weeks. Yeah, but usually, after 2 and 3 days, you will know what happened. You will know how bad it is. You know what data has been exfiltrated. You prepare a report, and then as soon as you know exactly what happened, you have 72 hours. Personnel to report to, as I said, maybe you need to report it to legal, maybe you need to report it to the cybercrime unit, maybe you need to report it to your customers. Mechanism for reporting and the minimum information to be reported. And ensure the process is publicly available to all of the workforce. Review annually, of course. 17.4, establish and maintain an incident response process. Okay, and has to address roles and responsibilities. Yes, so who is doing what? Assign people. Maybe you'll have a task force set up for incident response. Doesn't mean that there is full timers working on this, but there'll be different departments who are maybe part of this task force. For example, you might have DevOps who are part of it. You might have the network operations center who are part of it, because they need to liaise between different areas. You might have the CSIR team, obviously, because they need to make sure and understand what data has been exfiltrated. You might have different areas within the company, and it's important that you outline this, because you'll know that when shit hits the fan, you call this team. Perhaps something interesting and call it, Operations 9/11, or because that's what we used to call it at Betson. Something interesting. There'll be a team, there'll be a task force, and this will be the incident response team. I mean, for us, for example, we even involved GRC because we have insurance. We need to see whether we want to claim insurance for a cyber breach and things like that. So, if you think about it from all the holistic approaches, not just technical, but even operational, and even from a governance and risk perspective. Where are we? Is that compliance requirements and communication plan? So this is very important, compliance requirements. Don't think that everything fits in one sleeve. Different countries have different laws, different jurisdictions, and only legal, can understand what is needed in that area. Assign key roles and responsibilities. Okay, so key roles, and you have staff from legal, yeah, IT, information security facilities, perhaps public relations, human resources as well. Because even like communications, like for example, if it's a public listed company and there's a breach, the communications team need to send the report and need to put it on their website, saying that this has happened because it is a legal requirement. So there has to be people from different areas. It's not just an IT thing. It's not just a security thing. All the company has a part of it. Are a stakeholder in this incident response plan. Define mechanisms for communications. Determine which primary and secondary mechanisms will be used to communicate and report during a security incident. Mechanisms can include phone calls, emails, or letters. Keep in mind that certain mechanisms, as emails, can be affected during a security incident. Yes, so that's why we need two modes of communication. Perhaps emails is not the best solution because emails themselves might be part of the incident. But I think as well what is important here is to outline what not is okay. For example, it's not okay to use WhatsApp, because maybe it is data which will come out of the company. Maybe you need to outline that you need to use systems that are company owned and not just any system. I saw people insist, during these cases they go haywire and they start using Signal and start using Telegram and Viber and all these things, and at the end of the day, they start sending attachments and stuff, and the data would not remain at the company where you're working at because it's not a tool which is owned by the company. So it's very important that you outline this in your incident response plan as well, so to make sure the data remains within the company itself. Sometimes the company might decide that it wants to use tools which are out of the radar, yes, because they decide that the risk to take the risk of not reporting the incident. So they don't want it to be through email, because then if there's a legal thing, they can seize the email server and they can find it over there. I mean, these are messy things that we do not want to be part of, but I've seen this happen as well, where they want to, as much as possible, not use company tools because they don't want they don't want it to be tracked anywhere. So what would you do as a VC in that case? Would you comply, or would you say this is not my shit?
You mean it will be the duplicate channel of communication if the main channel like email or chat, corporate chat will be destroyed or compromised?
No, what I mean as well is that, so if there's a breach and you don't want to make it public, so the CEO or the owner of the company decides not to use the channels like email and stuff like that of the company, because if the court comes to find information, and they take away your email server, etc., they will find that information over there. So sometimes there are situations where companies not want to have this recorded, in emails or company systems, like in their chats. So they use tools like Signal and stuff like that to chat between themselves and see how to best mitigate these things. To me, I mean, if I see something like that, I will not work in that company because I do not want to be part of it, right? But these are things which happen. even, for example, I don't know, with ransomware, for example, I've read articles where companies pay the ransom, they didn't want to tell anyone. Yeah, so they involve a third-party company as well to pay it for them on their behalf, etc., etc. Just because they do not want, the actual bad media, to be kind of, they'll be part of the bad media that they have been hacked.
I think yes, it can be possible if it's really needed. Why not?
Well, yes and no, but you don't pay a ransom because you don't want to be in the media. Your parents, they have no other choice, and I still don't agree with it, because the more we're paying these ransoms, the stronger they are becoming.
No, I mean not only ransom. It can be different situation when C-level want to be, where communication can be public, and for future investigation, maybe any can find this information. What was internal communication between CEO maybe or owners.
But there are situations where companies not want to notify anyone of the breach because they prefer taking the risk of just, don't tell anyone. So they want to hide their tracks. If I start sending emails in my incident response plans talking about the hack that we had last week, and then, police come and they search in our email system and they find them there, then they're in shit. So there might be the possibility that, C-level owners of companies tell you not to use company material so that it won't be tracked at all.
But isn't this criminal stuff, like according to the GDPR, like you have to
It's
notify?
very criminal. It's very criminal. Very criminal.
Fines will be really
It's
high,
very
I
criminal.
guess.
Yes, it's very criminal. I was never in such a situation, but I've seen it, and it's not nice because you, as a VCSO or as a CISO, there's a certain responsibility that you have around your customers as well. So it's something that you should never play with. Okay, conduct routine incident responses. Plan, conduct routine incident response exercises and scenarios from key personnel involved in incident response process to prepare for responding to real-world incidents. These are called tabletop exercises, right? So you'll come up with an example, like, ransomware, and you start, you meet between the stakeholders that are defined in your incident response plan, and you see, what will happen. Do a dry run. Okay, so let's take out our incident response plan. Will that work? Okay, we need to tweak this area. I mean, escalation in this area should be improved. We should send this to CSERT after, level, tier 1 has actually identified it, rather than escalating to tier 2. I don't know, but you look at this, and you ideally every 6 months you come up with a case scenario and you prepare for it. You take the minutes around it, you have lessons learned around it, and then tweak and improve your incident response plan as you go along. Conduct post-incident reviews. Obviously, incidents happen, and they happen most of the time. And the idea is to provide reviews so they can identify lessons learned. Yes, sometimes when you have a breach, when you have an incident of some sort, there's always a way where you say, this isn't in the incident response plan, because when you're actually doing it, you're actually really understanding the process and whether it's working or not. So it's important that when there is an incident of sorts, you grab that policy and see whether it actually makes sense. Establish and maintain security incident thresholds, including at a minimum, differentiating between incidents and an event. Yes, because events and incidents are different, right? And it's important that you have a particular threshold as well. Maybe, a small incident, it doesn't even need to have, it does not even need to pass through the incident response plan. For us, for example, with SOC, anything which stops at tier 1 and tier 2, we don't need to invoke our incident response plan because it is started and finished within the SOC team. However, if something gets escalated to tier 3, which is the CSER team, which is us, then we need to invoke the incident response plan. Yes, doesn't make sense to have this response plan invoked all the time. especially if it's something small, something which tier one noticed and they mitigate it straight away. But if there is something big, then yes, incident response plan has to be invoked. Yeah, I understand what I'm trying to say. Very well. Any questions? Anyone has an experience with incident response planning? Ilya, maybe did something yourself?
I had a lot of experience with incidents, but plans were written before me, so I used and only modified something in them, like added a few instructions, but not
Okay.
really all.
The idea is to have, because when shit is the fan, everyone is in panic mode, right? Everyone is like a headless chicken. You know what they're going to do, and everyone's hitting each other, and we have an incident. So the idea is to have some form of, process in place, so that people, when they're in high stress mode, they can look at it and they can follow it and actually works. Yes, and there is some direction. So it's extremely important to have an incident response plan because, as I said in the beginning of this call, it will happen, at some point in time. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will happen, And this is when you need this, and when shit is the fan, you need as much help as possible. The more prepared you are, the better the output will be. Any questions? Anyone? Nothing?
No, I have a question, but not about like incident response, just my
Okay.
own. What do you know about DLP, data loss prevention solutions, and maybe do you use something, some of the solutions you can recommend?
Well, I'm currently using the Microsoft DLP solution, which is basically on the O265 layer. It is not good right now for us because we are currently using it. Obviously, people working from home, so we're not detecting at the endpoint level, but it's done at the Office 365 level, so anything which is on OneDrive, which is on SharePoint, emails, etc., etc. But going forward, I think with the paradigm shift that we're working from home, now the DLP solution has to be working at the endpoint level. Yes, and it's extremely important that it is done in that particular way. I had used WebSense in the past. It's a pretty good tool. It gave me quite a lot of value over there. And even Microsoft have their own endpoint DLP solution now. It's just that it's way too expensive for us, and we couldn't afford it. Have you looked at any DLP solutions yourself? Do you have anything in mind?
No, but just Googled what is it, and I was interested because it can prevent a lot of data leaks. So
Obviously, it's all with these data leak prevention software. You have templates that come with them. Like for example, out of the box you get GDPR templates, for example, and it can either block or can notify a subset of people when such data has been sent out. Anything that has to do with PI data. Also, there are other templates like different jurisdictions and laws. UK law, American law, etc. And there is as well the PCI DSS law. PIDSS controls, credit card leakages, etc., etc. I mean, for us, we have GDPR and PCI DSS templates set up, but obviously, you need to cater them for yourself and for your needs even more. So, for example, if there are certain, parameters that you want to detect, like I don't know, company secret projects and stuff like that, you can put them part and parcel within it, and you can take it from there. No problem, Julia. So yeah, it's a pretty good tool, and I think that you can't nowadays work without a data leak prevention software. It's extremely important, but given that a lot of companies are working from home now, I think that endpoint DLP is a must, and that is the only way how you can start getting some good stuff there. Also, if you want a really amazing rootkit, is called TerraMind. It's an extremely good tool. It's not a DLP solution, but it's a solution where it can do anything. You can even record the camera. You can keystrokes, you name it.
Okay, thank you. But the solution, like from the technical perspective, it should work on something like I don't know, neural machine learning or something like this. Because, for example, if we have a card number, for example, it's like some amount of numbers in a row. So if a person will send a message with some numbers, number
You
of
do
numbers.
get false positive, I'm afraid. But yes, if you have 16 characters, which is your credit card numbers, you usually there are different parameters, like they look for the word CVV in the actual text and all this stuff, right? I'm not aware of a really good DLP application with AI behavior. I didn't do the research because obviously we're stuck with the Office 365 DLP solution that we have for the next 2 years. But definitely, if you know of any AI behavior DLP solution, that would be great. But I know that with WebSense and with the ones that we have currently, they're working with templates, and they have different parameters when it takes certain things. I think it'll be very hard to actually catch, to have false positives in these areas, because at the end of the day, everyone, these things are susceptible to error. But something else which we detect is archived, big zip files of a certain thresholds that get notified to us. We tried DLP for swear words, but we had to stop it because everyone uses the word fuck every 5 seconds. It was just getting too much. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll watch into Termand and WebSense.
WebSense is good. It was a bit heavy, but during its time, I don't know now, but we had it deployed 3 years ago, and it was quite heavy on the endpoint. So something to look at is, how much resources does that endpoint take?
Okay.
For example, I remember with WebSense is to take the focus out. So you see actually the mouse sometimes it used to jitter, and it was actually the WebSense application. So if you're programming and stuff, all of a sudden you start seeing the mouse move. So that was a problem for us.
It's also a problem for me to, for example, to understand how well they work, because some messages, for example, can be encrypted, and how it should, for example, decrypt every message is sent.
It wouldn't decrypt because it is working at the kernel level, right? So it's actually on the endpoint itself. So if you're typing and stuff and you're sending the document, I don't think that would be encrypted by then, because it's catching it at the endpoint level.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone has any questions? Nope. Alrighty. I will see you all on Thursday then. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your lecture.
Bye.
Thank you.